So I'll make this relatively quick so that we can give as much time to Martin to do his presentation. But today I'm just going to talk about some of the high-level changes and updates that came out with the 2.8 release. Just a little bit of history. 2.7 was released back in March of 2019. We've done 9-point releases through September 2020, and version 2.8 was released on December 22nd. The focus of that release was bug fixes, performance enhancements, and some unfinished business that I will be showing you guys today. On the bug fixes front, high level, there's improved support for Impala, some OpenID authentication improvements, Atlas UI fixes for security-enabled operations, and many more bugs that are tracked in GitHub. So if you are interested in lower-level details about what kind of fixes and changes we've made, or if you have an open issue yourself that you want to just go back and see if that was resolved, go ahead and go into GitHub and take a look at the issue tracker there. From a performance perspective, one major change that was added was the notion of cohort caching. We've added new cache tables to the result schema for cohort generation. This means that cohorts generated for incidence rates, characterization, or just standalone cohort generation are cached and reused. This means that if you have a characterization with numerous cohorts or incidence rate analyses, and you just add one new cohort and you want to add it and run it, all the prior characterization results or the cohort generation results are cached, so you don't actually have to wait for all the cohorts to regenerate again. We have implemented or provided a hook to hook up vocabulary searching with Solr, and we've added documentation on setting that up. So if you are interested in a Solr-based vocabulary search experience, you can please see the documentation on that function. And finally, we've spent time improving the export and results retrieval, especially on the reports such as characterization, where there's many thousands of rows that can be returned. So there's been work on making that faster. Under unfinished business, there are enhancements to cohort pathways, concept set editing, and custom features. So I can show you a little bit of that here. On the cohort pathways, there's a tabular report view. So I have a example here where there was on the demo site, there was a pathway that was generated. The executions are here, so we can just view the latest result of this one. You can see it come up, and now there is a tabular view that you can click on that will give you some of the raw data that you see in the Sunburst as a table, but also some other summary and aggregated statistics about what event cohorts are in your pathway. So if you're doing pathway analysis, you might want to check out that feature. Another element of pathways that we've added is a new feature called the allow repeats function or parameter, meaning that when you're designing a pathway analysis, in the past, the default behavior was repeats weren't allowed. So if you had something like A, B, A, C, A, D, we would just say that the person actually experienced A, B, C, D. But if you enable repeats, then you will see all the intermediate back steps to prior event cohorts in your output. So another new feature, check it out if that interests you. On the concept set editors, we've changed the concept set editing behavior because now with characterization, instance rates, and other functions, we have the ability, you may have multiple concept sets being edited at one time. So for example, if I go into a characterization, and let's just say there's a new tab for concept sets, and let's say I add a concept set for characterization. And if I have a cohort definition, just open up any old one and take a look at this concept set. And you could have in incidence rates, you could also have a characterization. I'm sorry, you could have a concept set. And what this allows you to do is on the concept set editing page, you now have a button for adding concepts. It will take you to search without you having to navigate over to it. If you do a search for some type of term, in this case, I'm going to try to find psoriasis. The search results will show you, instead of the old shopping cart behavior, it will now give you checkboxes, allowing you to choose the concept that you want. And at that time, you choose how you want to add that concept to the concept set. So in this case, I would like to add psoriasis as an antecedent. And as you can see here next to that, there's a drop down that shows you which concept set that's open because I added a concept set from my incidence rate. It's selected here, and then you click on add concept, go back to my incidence rate concept set, and now psoriasis is here. There are no more shopping carts, so if you want to actually remove a concept from a concept set, you just select the concept you want to remove, and then you remove the selected concepts. So no more accidental dropping concepts from your concept set by clicking on icons. Okay. And then finally, the other feature I want to talk about is with a new custom feature type called a distribution. This lets you do create custom features for characterization that lets you create distribution statistics about things like count of records or duration of event, distinct count, distinct start dates, things like that. I have an example here where I have a custom feature called like visit counts, and in this case, I've created an inpatient visit that I just want to count the number of inpatient visits per person that are inpatient or ER. So that's one distribution that happened in the last year, I should say. So that is like one statistic. Then another one is the duration of visit. So each person will contribute a value based on all the inpatient visits that they had in the last year and get a distribution of durations. And you can also say, I would like actually the maximum duration per person. So there's these options for maximum duration. So as you can see, there's these choices that are given based on domain of event that you've picked. And without doing a full demo here, which I'm not going to do, you guys should play around with creating a custom feature for distributions and characterizations, and then add it to a characterization analysis and take a look at what you can do with it. It's a pretty cool feature. Okay, on to the focus of today's call, which is cohorts and cohort definitions. We'll talk about some of the cohort definitions enhancements that we've made. We have added the ability to create a sample of cohorts, a sample from a cohort. So here's an example I did on the Atlas demo site, just to find first occurrence of type 2 diabetes. If you click on the samples tab, you can see I created a sample with 100 people in it. If I want to add another sample and say I just want to have people that are age less than, say, 50, I want 40 people, they should be less than 50. I can also limit by gender. Clicking submit will create the sample, and here it is. So here's my 40 people, all less than that age. And if I want to look at one of them, I can click on their person ID, and it will slip you over to the profile page and load their profile. So this is a way we can access the profile a lot faster when dealing with cohort generations. The second, also I will say that that profile viewer that you see, we plan on releasing a new implementation of that in the 2.9 release. Second thing I'd like to show you is we now updated the print friendly of cohort definitions. Going back to this definition right here, if we take a look at export, we have this, which is server-side rendered and put in a markdown form. So now people that are more comfortable working in Markdown can get access to Markdown output. And we've also made enhancements to making the language inside the cohort definition a little bit nicer. So you can see how these entry events are defined, but let me show you an example of an inclusion criteria. No prior T2. I'm going to add a condition occurrence that says having exactly 0, the type 2, all time, and then prior, let's say prior to the index. So if I save this and take a look at the print friendly, so you can see here in no prior type 2, it says entry events having no condition occurrences of type 2 diabetes starting anytime on or before cohort entry date. To show you how the language is slightly changed, if I change this to 1 day before and look at the export, now the language says starting anytime prior to cohort entry date. So it removed that whole on or before part. So we've made a lot of energy into making the cohort definition language a little bit more human sounding and readable. So hopefully you guys will appreciate that and give that a try in your own cohort definitions. With that server-side print-friendly capability, we've created a Cersei R package, which basically wraps the functions that are in the Cersei library that lets you take a JSON file and turn it into that print-friendly output. So that you can find in GitHub. It's right over here. You go to GitHub Odyssey Cersei R, and you can, if you know how to install libraries from GitHub, go ahead and try that out and try to call those methods that will generate the SQL and generate from a JSON file. Finally, some functional changes to cohort definitions I'd like to just shout out right here, and also call out a online phenotype tutorial at Eden Academy. So for the cohort definition change, you have the ability now to count distinct start dates or visits. Right here, we said that there was exactly 0 diabetes. I can change this to like at least 2, but I can choose what I want to count by clicking the using all clicking the button, changes it to a using distinct. And now you have the choice of either counting by the standard concept, which is the prior default behavior that when you said count distinct records, it was really saying distinct standard concepts. But you can also count things by distinct start dates or distinct visit, which is using the distinct visit ID. The use case for using these 2 new options is if you want to say that you have to have at least 2 occurrences on different days, then you'd want to count distinct start dates. And that would help you do that sort of operation, which before this distinct counting option was kind of a more difficult proposition, but now it's pretty simple. And then finally, just to jump over to the Eden Academy, academy.eden.eu. If you guys log into that and you want to see the phenotype tutorial, you can click on courses and search for phenotype. And that will send you to this phenotype definition course that you can just enroll in and just take. It's free. It has courses on defining cohort definitions in Atlas. It talks about the main constructs of cohort definition in Atlas, which is the queries, concept sets, groups, and counting functions. And also in this presentation or in this courseware, there is a series on cohort diagnostics and Phevaluator. So you guys can also see how to, once you've defined your cohort definition, how you can go about doing diagnosis on it and using Phevaluator to evaluate this sensitivity and specificity of the cohort definition based on, modeling and propensity score type of stuff.